I'm really glad you mentioned this vision. A lot of leadership gurus are running around saying you got to have a vision, talk about your vision. But when I interact with students, they sometimes say, "What is a vision? How do I get one? Where do I find it?" So, can you talk a little bit about what that means? What is a leader's vision, and how do you develop it?
Certainly, when I talk about a vision and what it's not some abstract concept. It's a tangible thing. And so, for instance, when we went to Chicago and at the Transit Authority, although it was the second largest agency in the country and well known, and 11,000 employees is a massive system. Um, Ridership had been declining for 15 years, and nobody seemed to know or care why that was happening. But it had profound impacts. I mean, the system wasn't doing the job it was supposed to. And of course, declining ridership meant declining revenues, which means you can't keep reinvesting. It's this, downward spiral of things. So I set a vision of growing ridership. And, that sounds simple enough. But it then worked with everybody to understand why that was important, why it would make a difference to the city, to the region, to them in their own jobs, how it would help us get more funding, how it would help us perform better. And then really worked with them to understand, okay, well, why have we been losing ridership? How can we get it back? And what can you do to try to do that? And we've had great things come out of that, with like people in, maintenance jobs realizing that if they did some things differently and cleaned the system better, that would attract more people. We we had one of my favorite things was Chicago was one of only two systems in the country that never shut down, 24-hour, 7-day a week. And what that meant is, and it has the electric third rail, and so it limits your ability to go in and clean things sometimes because you're always running. And so there are subways there had not been thoroughly cleaned in decades. And we had maintenance guys come in and say, you know what, if we shut down for like 2 or 3 hours Sunday morning, 2 to 4 a.m., we can power wash the stations, we can, do all that. And so we did it. And we discovered that the subway tiles were in fact white, not gray. um, and it lit up the stations, and it made a splash, in the community, and it showed people that things were happening differently and that they mattered. And that idea came out of, that wasn't a top-down edict. It came up out of talking to people and getting their ideas of how to advance the goals and achieve the vision. Yeah, we did. Well, in that example in Chicago, we did, and this was 20 years ago, so ancient times in some ways. But we realized one thing. For instance, we had every 2 weeks, every employee got a paycheck mailed to them, and so that was an opportunity to communicate with them. And we started putting a letter in with the paycheck because we knew they would open up that envelope, right, to get their paycheck. But it was a chance to communicate a message to every single employee in the organization. And we did that every 2 weeks. We would send a message out about what we were doing, why we were doing it, why it mattered, and all that. That was just one of the things we did. But in every organization, and now we have so many more tools to communicate effectively. But I think it's a huge oversight if you assume, okay, my job is to, for instance, get this legislation done, right? Well, you need to engage the rest of the workforce in that too and help them understand, because, they can play a part in that as well. They also need to understand why I'm spending all that time, going after it. And they are voters, they are constituents, who can be involved in the process. And the more engaged and involved the full team is, I think the more effective it can be also.